Welcome back to In the Courts. TikTok is suing the United States over the new law Congress passed forcing their Chinese parent company to sell off the app. Plus, the House Judiciary Committee is going after Attorney General Merrick Garland, and Maryland just wrapped up its primary elections that, as we've talked about on the show, has ramifications in the courts. Joining me to break all of this down, Congressman Glenn Ivey. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Off the top, let's talk about the Judiciary Committee going after AG Garland. We also learned this is all about the audio for Rob Hur's testimony that he had when he was investigating the president. Why do you think the White House is claiming executive privilege here? And do you think the American people should be able to hear the audio?
Well, I mean, the House Judiciary Committee has had a verbatim transcript of the deposition for a couple of months now. And this is supposed to be as part of their impeachment inquiry. And so if there had been anything in there that supported it, I'm sure they would have moved forward with it and made hay of it immediately. But there's nothing really there. So my sense is that what they're going to do with it is, if they get it, is to try and use it for campaign purposes to help Trump beat Biden in the election. I
mean, putting aside the politicians, do you think the American people deserve to at least listen to this? I mean, we talk about on this show, no cameras in the courtroom. It's making it difficult to cover the Trump trial. But there's a difference in being able to hear or to see an exchange versus read it in a transcript.
Well, not really from an impeachment inquiry standpoint. I mean, the line that became so controversial was him trying to remember the exact date of his son's death. How that plays one way or the other in an impeachment inquiry is beyond me. And Hur, the special counsel, who was a Republican who'd been appointed by Trump, has already found there was no criminal conduct to pursue. So, you know, what's the legitimate purpose? Even Congress has a right to go after information for oversight purposes, but there needs to be some kind of legislative purpose connected with that. They didn't really articulate one, and they totally ignored the assertion of executive privilege. So I think if they end up going to court, you know, we'll see how it plays out. But I think they don't really have a record to support what they're trying to do.
So you don't think the American people should just get a look at it off the bat without any kind of fight?
I'm sure there might be a time where it's appropriate, but not use of the congressional authority for this purpose. Somebody wants to file a FOIA request or something, that's another conversation, and that's FOIA goes to what you're talking about, not the congressional contempt power, especially criminal contempt.
Let's talk about the moves that Congress made against TikTok. It has not only invited a lawsuit from TikTok against the federal government, but also some major TikTok creators. The DOJ says they're looking forward to defending the law in court. But there are some arguments made in the lawsuit from TikTok in particular that this is really the first time that the government has gone after an individual speech platform like this and that it violates the First Amendment. What's your take?
I don't really think it has much to do with the First Amendment. Because even if they have to separate and sell off or break away from ByteDance, everybody would still have their First Amendment rights to the extent they are connected to use of TikTok. I don't know that TikTok has a First Amendment right so much to not, you know, separate from ByteDance. I don't see a First Amendment argument there. And certainly ByteDance doesn't have a First Amendment right in any of this either. So I think the First Amendment argument is kind of a red herring. I think this is really an issue about them wanting to maintain the connection that ByteDance provides them with the CCP in China. And, you know, we'll see how it plays out, but they'll have their day in court. But I think the way that they demagogue this, to be really blunt, I think shows why there's a problem with respect to TikTok and the way they've been using their platform.
It does make a national security case, perhaps, in the lawsuit. Before we let you go, I want to ask, a number of your colleagues have shown up in the Manhattan courthouse while Trump has been on trial. What do you make of that?
I mean, I thought it was kind of pathetic, frankly, and my only guess, I guess some of them are trying to run for vice president, but most of them aren't really. I think
So what are they doing in a Manhattan courtroom?
Yeah, I think the goal really is to go up and influence the jury. You know, the judge imposed a restraining order essentially on statements that Trump could make. A lot of these guys went up there and sort of made the statements that Trump was concerned about making. And a lot of this was targeted at the jury, too. Now, I think
we'll see if a jury of New Yorkers can actually be influenced.
But yeah, might might break bad for them if they're not careful.
Just at the end here, I want to draw on your prosecution experience here out of Prince George's County, because the county actually elects judges. We talked to our audience about the judges who are on the ballot, and we know all 5 judges are going to be on the ballot this come November, including 4 incumbents that went through the entire process appointed by the governor, went through the commission, and one who's trying to unseat one of the incumbents. Do you think that Prince George's County judges should be elected and should be able to take campaign contributions that could possibly influence them?
Well, the first step, I think, is the voters should elect the sitting judges. We've had a scenario where a judge ran and was elected but wasn't appointed and hadn't been vetted, and they're just removing her from the bench right now. I think it's about five years ago that she was elected to the bench. So you got to be careful about who you put up there, because it's a very powerful position. Whether elections are the best way to go for judges, probably not, but I think that there are also issues with respect to the appointment process. We did have some scenarios where there were some questions about, from a diversity standpoint in particular, what was happening there. So, there are ups and downs with both, but we've got this system now and for the foreseeable future. So for this election, they'll reelect the sitting judges.
We'll see about that. Have you back in November once we have that election. Congressman Glenn Ivey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.